I'll give it to the scientists in the food industry that have figured out how to make chemicals taste great.
People aren't getting the care that they want from the regular medical system.
More and more people realize that the current medical system isn't giving them health. We help people where we can, but we're not doing a great job at it. The chance of you having a heart attack in your 40s is really low, no matter what. So I don't really care about 10-year risk. I want to know 30-year risk, lifetime risk. And that just takes a different paradigm shift. So like I spoke about calcium scores, a calcium score is abnormal based off of your age and the number. But if you're 45 years old and your calcium score is 1, that could be a problem because...
Yeah, that's growing.
Right, because you already have advanced plaque at 45 years old. I had a person today who is 49, fairly healthy person. We did a calcium score because his cholesterol had been elevated for the past few years, and his calcium score is 350. That's shocking for a 49-year-old. I think there's other reasons for that he wasn't aware of. And so it's helpful just to partner with a doctor that is curious about what is your risk? What is actually going on under the hood? Maybe there's nothing. Maybe you're doing great, but maybe there's some things you weren't aware of. Insulin resistance that other lab wasn't picking up on. Inflammation that's mild but there, but present. And what's driving that? And can we make a change now so in 10, 20, 30 years down the road, you're just as healthy? You're not dealing with some problem that could have been avoided or prevented.
And people who want to eat as natural as possible, like have this whole new world to explore of fermented foods. You got to resist this world a little bit.
Hello, and welcome to Legends of Longevity with me, Joseph Entz. I'm your host, and I'm thrilled to have you join me on this journey towards living a longer, stronger, more vibrant life. The podcast is about uncovering the secrets to longevity, things your doctor does not tell you, whether it's groundbreaking advancements in heart health, lifestyle tips to keep you thriving, or inspired stories of people who've defied the odds. Together, we'll explore the tools, techniques, and mindset shifts that can help you unlock your fullest potential. Whether you're here to learn how to enhance your well-being, support your loved ones, or just stay ahead of the curve in health and wellness, you're in the right place. Let's empower each other to not only live longer, but live stronger.
I'm here with Dr. Troy Jackson of Authentic Health in Asheville, North Carolina. He's got a practice that's growing. He's got direct primary care. He's got a great team behind him. And he took over a great practice from Gus Vickery, who's been around Asheville a long time. A lot of great knowledge. And Troy's kind of your optimal concierge doctor. He's not happy with the answers he's getting from the pharma reps. He keeps learning after medical school, and I've learned a lot of really good stuff from him. So we're going to have a conversation about his heart attack and stroke prevention program and how he's doing it, what he's looking into, and what he thinks. But first, you're in Asheville, North Carolina. You guys got a rainstorm a little while ago.
We did, Joe. Thank you for having me on here. And yes, back in September, end of September, we had a hurricane and really destroyed our area and still looks very much destroyed in a lot of different places around town. We personally were very fortunate. Our clinic and the people in our clinic were very fortunate, but we're still reeling from that time, certainly.
Wow. I ask everybody this, on purpose or not on purpose? LA fires.
I don't follow the news enough to have an opinion. I'm not very much of a conspiracy theorist, so I'll probably just point to not on purpose.
Smart play. Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff going on. Heart disease. Now, you've got a big practice. Tell me about it and what you specialize in, because you got a brain that's pretty curious.
Yeah, so Authentic Health is a primary care clinic. It's been around for 20 years, and Dr. Vickery is still very much a part of the practice. So I just to clarify, I didn't take it over. We're partners in this venture. And a few years ago, we decided to pursue something called precision medicine. The way we practice primary care was not very satisfying way. The way we were taught, we were doing it for many years. It's very cursory. It didn't feel like we were helping anyone. And then couple that with, there's lots of advancements happening in medicine of deeper evaluations with blood work and imaging and research about different therapeutics and supplements that could very much help people. And in the Western traditional medical sense, those things weren't getting the limelight as much as we felt like were applicable or helpful. And so we started, we had a second arm to our practice where we did deeper evaluation for people that were curious, that wanted more than just the cursory look. And that side of the practice grew. And then last year, like in 2024, January, so 1 year ago, we transitioned to direct primary care. We left the insurance model in order to pursue a path of health that we didn't feel like we wanted to be, um, inhibited because of an insurance company. And so our practice is probably more on that precision medicine side. We have a lot more people that are really looking for that deeper engagement, and that's what I do every single day. And it's been a very rewarding experience for me. I'm pretty young in my practice, but it's the way of medicine that I've always wanted to pursue, and I think it's going to be something that will just continue to grow and deepen and strengthen and give people more power when it comes to affecting and changing their health.
I love it. And the way I'm seeing the medical industry, there's a big move towards this where people aren't getting the care that they want from the regular medical system. They're figuring out the pattern is you're going to get a 15-minute appointment and a prescription and shuffled out the door. But if you want a doc that'll dig in and figure out sort out what your issues are, whether it's diet, exercise, there's a deep bench you can go down to figure out what's wrong with you. And you need a doc to kind of tune in and coach you along and help you figure out how to run your body at optimal. And you just don't get that with regular doctors. You got to find someone special, someone that you get along with, and that someone's going to be courageous enough to tell you when you're wrong.
It is an exciting time, and I would say that's probably the patient that gets me fired up the most, the ones that come in saying, hey, I read this, I listened to this, I'm curious about this. Maybe I'm transferring from another clinic because they told me I needed to do X, Y, Z, and I'm just not ready for that yet. I feel like there's more to my story than just, this is what it is, take this medication. That's not.
So you don't get mad at patients when they come in with a Google list with a couple searches?
I mean, if they are okay with me, if they're coming in for them to say, I trust you as my doctor, what do you think about this? Then yeah, that's a great conversation to have. The harder people are the ones that bought into whatever they're reading, and maybe it's not applicable to them, and I have to try to talk them off the ledge a little bit. Yeah, it's a little bit tougher.
That makes sense.
But with our practice, people are coming to see us because they trust us. They want to know, how does what they read online or heard on a podcast, how does that apply to them? Is it something they should be thinking about, or is it something that they don't need to worry about and they can move on to something else?
Fascinating. And how do your patients present? Do they usually just come in with mild diabetes, or do you get really complex patients?
So the beauty of our practice is we are a primary care practice, so we see everything. So I have people that come in that are, pristine health, and they're just looking to optimize further. Where can my body take me? And then we have people that come in and they're fed up that they have diabetes and their A1C is 8 or 9%, and they're trying to reverse it, and they want to get off these medications that they're currently taking. We have people that come to see us after a heart attack, and after a heart attack, you're put on 5 medications. And it's not to say they're going to want to come off those. That may not be the right answer, but they're saying, I don't want to have that second heart attack again. I survived this one. I don't want this to happen to me or to my family ever again. I want to do everything that it takes to make sure that I'm as healthy as possible. So you get the full span of people.
It's about teaching the patient too. Like, they don't know what they don't know. And so helping them round out some really good, what are some great changes that you've made with patients that really made a big difference?
Yeah. I want to speak to one thing here is that, patients and doctors, everyone's at fault in here is I don't think we appreciate the potential of the human body. I think we shortchange what the human system can do, what it's capable of doing. And I think there's part of that is just a lack of experience or maybe some experience with what the body can do, just because we don't allow it to get to these extreme ends as much anymore. This is ancient cultural tradition, very much respect to the dynamics of the human body and what it can do to survive. And we don't do that anymore with our modern environments. We never have to face much in terms of survival. And so on the flip side, we don't face much of like, well, what can my body do? How can it thrive? Can it be better than where I am now, whether I feel good or not? And when you go to the doctor, there's no ill intent here. It's just saying, well, there's a medication to take for this or a surgery for this to fix it. But your body's also capable potentially of fixing these things itself. We're beautifully made, wonderfully made. And a lot of times illness is just telling us that something has gone wrong that needs to be fixed, addressed, changed, removed, something. And I want to say that, a lot of people, part of my job is just showing them what their potential is, what can happen to them.
All right. That was so exciting, but so vague. Give me more.
So I'll give some examples. I have one person that has been with me for a few years now. She has Crohn's disease, came to me with a calprotectin of 2000. A calprotectin is a stool test that tells you the burden of inflammation in your colon. And we don't necessarily trend calprotectins, but it's nice kind of to see like what is the level of activity. And she was diagnosed with Crohn's disease and was told to be on a biologic medication, which it's an immune suppressant in a way. And she didn't want to do that. She wanted to see what else can be done. And she's very diligent in diet and exercises and came to see me like, what else can I be doing? Well, fast forward 3 years and her calprotectin has been very consistently around 100. That's still abnormal. Less than 50 is where we're wanting to be. But she no longer fears eating food anymore. She used to fear what would happen if she ate something that didn't agree with her. She used to fear going out to eat or going to a friend's house or going on vacation because what if her Crohn's disease flared up again? She no longer feels that fear anymore. And I remember her tearing up in one of our visits one time because of that release. And it was just a beautiful story to see.
That would be liberating. That would be so liberating when you're
Yeah.
pretty much a shut-in because of diet.
And then
Wow.
we have multiple people, men and women in their 70s, and they say, well, I feel healthier now than I did in my 60s. We measure body composition on everyone pretty regularly, looking at body fat percentage and muscle mass. And anyone tells you that a person in their 70s can't gain muscle or lose fat, they're wrong, because we see it all the time. Dropping body fat percentages, 5, 10%, just by being diligent, by consistent with strength training and protein intake and maybe some calorie restriction, maybe some supplements to help improve deficiencies that are there. You're just trying to get the body to work better. And if it works better, it works for you. And
You're hinting that we're not going to get the body we want if we only do easy things, or we have to earn it.
Yeah, I don't know who said this, so it's not me, but the quote is, if you do easy things now, it will be hard later. And if you do hard things now, it will be easy later. And I
buy
think
that.
that's with health.
Yeah. Most people don't do that maintenance.
Mm-hmm. And it's not like things are hard. It's just the hard part is the consistency. Yeah. Oh, I know what to eat. I know what I should be doing. I just don't do it. I hear that all the time. It's the doing it is the hardest part of this whole thing. I usually never tell anybody something they don't already know. A lot of it is just me coming back to it, consistently reminding them, consistently showing them in blood work that this is not a trajectory you want to walk down. This is what it's going to look like if we don't make changes. And then the flip side is they start doing these changes, and we're checking blood work every 3 to 4 months, checking body composition scans, and they're seeing that things are improving. My numbers are getting better. My numbers are getting better than I even thought was possible. We haven't started a medication yet, and yet things are improving, lipids and inflammation. And that is the motivating thing that keeps people on the train.
Yeah, it is. Wow. What do you find that's motivational for these patients? Because some people would argue that they're coming to you and they can pay the fee for a concierge doctor, right? But, if you're willing to quit cigarettes to save the money to get the doctor you want, that's probably the path where a lot of people start.
Yeah, and you can do simple things. It doesn't have, you don't have to see me. I do think getting blood work and in-depth blood work is an important first step. And fortunately, there's many direct-to-consumer companies out there that for a few $100s, you can get a huge panel of blood work. And maybe AI is interpreting that for you. I don't know. But at least starting there and then going to your own doctor and saying, what do you think about these things? Can you give me some guidance? That's a great place to start. You make a change. You repeat the blood work 6 months later, 1 year later. And I think seeing something on a page is a very helpful motivator. If it's a red number, that's motivating to move it to black. If you see a number getting even better into that quote optimal range, that's a motivator to continue moving forward. The body is infinitely complex, and sometimes we can feel these changes, but sometimes it's tough. We're really far down a rabbit hole of disease and illness. It's tough to know that I'm getting better, but then you see things getting better on paper, and you're talking with a clinician that sees hundreds, thousands of people a year moving on the same path that you're on, and that's the thing that kind of gets people, okay, maybe I can get out of this.
Yeah, having a doctor help you build up some momentum is certainly worthwhile. And I'm seeing a bit of a bifurcation in the industry. You've got patients that are largely not awake. They go to the doctor because they have an issue and they get refilled with their 15-minute appointment. And they're just told to go down this corn syrup path that isn't going to get much better and is fraught with a lot of problems. And then you've got your patients that are looking. They're aware. Sometimes they don't have a doctor for more than a couple months or a couple years because they suck all the information from them. And these people are alive. They seem to stay vibrant. And I don't know, they're cut a little bit differently.
Yeah. To be clear, I see both types in the precision program and just our clinic in general. So I have people that are eager to learn, eager to figure it out, but they're not in my precision program because of the cost. That's okay. I'm still helping them figure out the 80% of the answers are done in very simple interventions done over a long period of time. And I have people that don't, I'm not sick, so therefore I'm healthy is kind of the thought process. And that's okay. I'm not here necessarily to try to strong arm them into thinking differently about their health. My hope for them, my prayer for them is that they realize that they could be better, that they're not waiting for some scary event to happen to them before they make a change. But everyone comes down the road differently, and that's okay.
Yeah. For my journey, I was gaining some weight. I was getting big, and I work in this industry. I work in heart attack and stroke, and I check my ultrasound probes all the time. And until I saw those two little plaques in my artery, I wasn't really paying attention, and I didn't really look at it. But as soon as I saw those plaques, I'm like, it all clicked into place. All right, what do I need to do? Change my diet. I actually got a dog so I'd lose weight, because I won't walk myself, but I will walk the dog. I don't know. You got to play your own psychology games to get where you want to go, but it made a big difference in me. And you're using a lot of different tests and a lot of different supplements, and where you're getting your information. And you sent me a couple really interesting articles on Natto Kinase.
Yeah, it's very fascinating, and I'm always learning something new. So the things I know now are probably going to be very different 5 years from now. The tools that we're using will be very different 5 years from now than they are now. The space is ever growing. Some things are going to really shine. Some things are going to fall by the wayside. And that's okay. It's all in the spirit of health. And that's what we're trying to help my patients, help myself. I'm just as much a patient as anyone else is. And so our opinion here is that we use as many tools as possible, because that refines the information for us. If you're getting just your lipids checked and your LDL looks okay, that means nothing in terms of, do you currently have heart disease? Are you going to have heart disease in the future? But having 20 different tests that point towards heart disease risk is important. Getting a calcium score or a CINT ultrasound that looks and says, do you have heart disease today? These are all important tools that refine our understanding of you as a person. And if we're on the low risk side of the spectrum, or we have reasons to believe that we can make serious inroads without prescriptive options, then we use lifestyle techniques. There's really great therapeutics out on the market now that are over the counter that you can purchase that, in the right person, are very powerful, and paired with the right things like changes in exercise or diet can really move the needle for you. Some people are coming to me, and we need to use prescriptive medications because we got to make movement fast. And that's okay. Everyone comes at a different stage of life, and my job here is to help figure out what is going to be the best path for them. And I want to use every tool in the toolbox.
You do. And you think a little bit differently, because things like heart disease, amongst others, they got to brew for a while in your body. You've got to beat on your body for a few years with some cigarettes or too much sugar and corn syrup and not exercising. Like, you've got to earn it, and eating cheap food, and like all those things seem to add up. And if you believe the commercials that this is part of a complete breakfast, that is not good food for you. It's not going to work the way you want it to. So having a doc to point out, hey, there's some new science on this, there's some new on that, you may want to consider this. Or you can just have a doc tell you, hey, this is the path that I see is most effective.
Heart disease specifically, all guidelines, it's changing now, I think, but all guidelines look at 10-year risk. What's my risk of heart attack in the next 10 years? Well, if I have a 40-year-old sitting in front of me, their 10-year risk, no matter how unhealthy they are, is low. The chance of you having a heart attack in your 40s is really low, no matter what. So I don't really care about 10-year risk. I want to know 30-year risk, lifetime risk. And that just takes a different paradigm shift. So like I spoke about calcium scores, a calcium score is abnormal based off of your age and the number. But if you're 45 years old and your calcium score is 1, that could be a problem because...
Yeah, that's growing.
Right, because you already have advanced plaque at 45 years old. I had a person today who is 49, fairly healthy person. We did a calcium score because his cholesterol had been elevated for the past few years, and his calcium score is 350. That's shocking for a 49-year-old. I think there's other reasons for that he wasn't aware of. And so it's helpful just to partner with a doctor that is curious about what is your risk? What is actually going on under the hood? Maybe there's nothing. Maybe you're doing great, but maybe there's some things you weren't aware of. Insulin resistance that other lab wasn't picking up on. Inflammation that's mild, but present. And what's driving that? And can we make a change now so in 10, 20, 30 years down the road, you're just as healthy? You're not dealing with some problem that could have been avoided or prevented.
Yeah, let me tell you something interesting that you can tell me how to reconcile this. I've got a few family members that have got coronary calcium scores, and they're in the few hundreds, 300 to 500, not off the charts, but not in the thousands. Just you're there. Okay, be aware. I scan them with my carotid ultrasound. I look at their arteries, and there's a couple specks there of calcified plaque. Not a lot. Not like I'd expect, 20, 30, 50% occlusion. Just a few specks of calcified plaque. And you and I are operating off the research that's published saying, if I can find a plaque in the neck, there's an 89 to 99% correlation that a similar size, shape, and consistency, they're reflections of each other. So I talking to another technician in California, and I said, hey, she brought it up. I got some family members, they got their calcium score, and I would have expected a lot more plaque in the arteries for a score of that size. And we talked about it. There's nothing we can do about it, but we know they should correlate more tightly. How would you bird dog that problem?
It's recognizing there's a humility aspect here. That this is a tough situation. I can go in very confident that their CIMT or their calcium score is going to be awful, and it's not. There are protective mechanisms in place that I don't know about or can't explain that is protecting someone from the blood work risk factors that I'm picking up on. It could be that the calcium score, if is calcified, maybe they had a serious problem 20 years ago, 10 years ago, and they've done a lot of inroads over the past few years to fix that. And calcium, the party line is that calcified plaque doesn't go away, this. And so maybe it's almost like a scar, this remnant of what was going on in their bodies, and they've halted that progress. Maybe if we did a coronary CTA where you inject a dye and you looked at their heart arteries, maybe they only had calcified plaque and zero soft plaque, and things have changed. It's a difficult situation, and from my opinion on those people would be, I don't know what's going on here. Let's follow this pretty closely. Maybe do calcium scores a little sooner than typical, maybe do the CIMT a little sooner than typical, check blood work more in depth just to make sure we're not missing something here. And it's a discussion. How concerned are you about this? I'm a little concerned as your doctor, but at the end of the day, it's just a conversation. If someone says, hey, I never want to have a heart attack. Well, then let's kitchen sink this and throw everything at it. Or I feel pretty good. I made a ton of changes. I think that's why this has happened. Okay, let's just check that over time.
Yeah. Let's talk about the therapies you use, because you've read into this a lot more than a lot of casuals. We've been talking about natto, the Japanese breakfast. You can't get it at the Korean store. You can't get it at the Asian food store. It's got to be the Japanese food store if you want to get the natural food. And I think we're both trending towards natural foods when possible. And there's a lot of research coming out that natto kinase, it does a lot of good, especially when it's paired with some other substances. What are you reading about that?
So I'll be honest with you, my understanding of natto kinase was fairly surface level. I had people use it for a variety of reasons. We measure fibrinogen levels. If it's elevated, I'll usually suggest it for people to try to improve fibrinogen levels. That's a blood test that suggests increased clotting in the body. But looking at this study kind of got me curious, and so I looked deeper into this. And natto kinase is a fascinating world. And I hope at the end of this podcast that people actually appreciate that, even if they never use it, that natto, the Japanese food, is fermented soybeans. It's been around for thousands of years, and it's been considered this longevity food. No one knew why, right? The Japanese people ate it because they were seeing in their relatives health benefits that were difficult to really like put your finger on, but they could just tell they're vibrant, thriving, they live longer, whatever. But it's been ingrained in their cultural food tradition for thousands of years. And it wasn't until the late 80s that someone even figured out why. That they did these studies and showed that there's this enzyme, the most abundant enzyme in natto called natto kinase, that breaks down fibrin and reduces the chance of someone creating a blood clot. And then later on, they found that it had anti-atherogenic effects and it lowered blood pressure and they lowered lipids too. And there's all these like incredible things that science is now seeing about natto kinase that the Japanese people knew for thousands of years in some way. And I think that's just a beautiful thing to think about, that culinary food tradition is a very important aspect of health, and we should respect that. When there's foods that have been passed down for thousands of years, or food pairings that have been passed down for thousands of years, that's probably meaningful. It's survived the test of time. And then
Amen.
The fact that natto kinase is this naturally occurring molecule made through fermentation of soybeans, like that's pretty incredible. That it didn't take a scientist, a human scientist.
There really is some magic in fermentation and fungus. Like,
Yeah.
we're still finding out more and more things. And you're right about the pairing. Oh my gosh. A lot of foods, a lot of cultures are very particular about these two foods together and these two foods don't. Like the Italians with garlic and onions.
Yeah. And yeah, garlic, onion, tomatoes, and putting those things together. There's a growing reason for that. I can't remember specifically, but growing like basil and tomatoes together is mutually beneficial, maybe from a bug perspective. But there's all these things. Using wasabi on sushi is an antibacterial, so it reduces the risk of having foodborne illnesses on raw seafood. No one knew
That's a
that.
good one.
It was just that they found that we put things together that people got sick less, and it worked out. So it's just fascinating. I love that natto fit into this, that a culinary food tradition thousands of years now has a medical application. It's great.
It does. And people who want to eat as natural as possible, like have this whole new world to explore of fermented foods.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of people start out dabbling with apple cider vinegar and adding that into their diet. And then more and more they find out that there's this rich Italian history of all cultures of food, wonderful food that help you moderate your diet, help you feel better, that help you digest better.
All cultures except for ours. We do not have a fermented food that is traditional to the Americas.
Except whiskey.
I have a friend who grew up in a missionary family in Japan, and I asked him about natto kind of in preparation of this podcast, and he doesn't have a very pleasant description of it. It's a very sticky, slimy looking substance. It doesn't taste particularly great either. I've never had it, but he said it's very polarizing. Some people in his family love it. Some people in his family tolerate it because it was a health food, and then some people just avoided it like it was the plague.
Yeah. A friend of mine lived in Japan and he tuned me into it, and he told me where to get it. Japanese food store. I go down there for like $3. You get 3 little breakfasts in these styrofoam little containers. I might go get one to show you. But yeah, you open it up and it's frozen and it comes with mustard and soy sauce. I've never had mustard for breakfast. You put it on and it warms up because it's been in the freezer, and it's so snotty, so sticky. You take a bite and there's stringies all the way to the dish, and you're like, I don't know. And I grew up in New England on a farm, and it smells like a bucket of wheat that's been left in the barn too long, just fermented. It's not traditionally American appetizing. But then again, our American palate's pretty nasty. I know that when I made a big health change, like I saw those plaques, I had a good think, and I decided that I'm going to recalibrate my taste buds, that soda was just too sticky sweet all the time. I'm going to go to water, and eventually I moved to like herbal teas because I decided I like this, and not because I know sweet is. Anyways, now there's a bunch of foods that I just don't enjoy eating as much as I used to, but I miss them. But yeah, you can recap. You have a great control over your diet, great control over what you want to eat. And getting back to the fermented foods, like if you can reset your taste buds to natural foods that are naturally made, I think you got a lot better shot than corn syrup, low fiber processed food, trisodium phosphate diet.
Yeah, I'll give it to the scientists in the food industry that have figured out how to make chemicals taste great. They,
Right.
better for worse, it is an interesting feat of engineering.
It really is. Those guys, they get
what
those
it does to you.
the chemicals out of the petroleum to make the flavors, the Fruit Loops brighter. Like,
Yeah.
what have we done to our diet? That's amazing.
Yeah, the fact that Kellogg or Post or Nabisco or whoever they have scientists, they have MRI machines. The only reason they use those things is because they're trying to figure out the right concoction of different chemicals and fat and sugar and salt to make this perfect bite every single time, because all they want is for you to come back to it. I want you to buy it again, tell your friends about it, respond emotionally to the commercial, and then that they're just trying to get you that hook.
Identify yourself with our brand.
Yeah. And it sounds like a conspiracy theory, but there are many people who in like higher up, positions that write about this. They're
Their
either
job.
they're ex employees of these companies, or they're in the political system. They see the food lobbyists coming in. They sell MRI machines to these companies. Like, Nabisco doesn't need an MRI machine. Like, you're making cookies.
Yeah, so the MRI, that's so they can watch the person's brain light up.
Yeah, it's called a bliss point. They're trying to figure out what's the right concoction of these chemicals that just makes everything in your pleasure centers of your brain light up. That's why if you look at any box in the grocery store, there's 1 gram of added sugar in it, right? You're imperceptible in terms of taste, but in your brain, it's enough to hit that sweet spot, literally, the pleasure center that makes you eat another one. The Lay's slogan, I bet you can't eat just one. It's a very specific, intentional thing. They don't want you to eat just one. They're going to figure that out. And that's the system we're against. It's the modern food environment that, for my patients and for anyone listening, we have to fight against. We have to put limitations and boundaries in order to have a foothold in the environment that we live in. We can't just walk around freely and willpowering our way to better health in every single avenue. Just like you had to just get it out of your refrigerator and out of your pantry. You had to maybe stop watching TV if commercials are a trigger for you, or get an ad blocker on the computer. You have to do things that allow us to thrive. You're putting limitations on yourself in order to thrive in the life and the world that you're in.
Yeah, I heard a really interesting thing about organ donation in Europe, and there were two countries right next to each other, and one made it the default state to donate your organs, and one you had to opt in. And they had drastically different opt-in rates or organ replace, because people just go with the default. So if you go with the default diet, the default everything, you're going to do what the marketers want you to do. And so I totally agree with you. That's what I'm trying to say, is living your life by design, picking your fights, picking the food that you want, picking the people that you like. It all adds up to a beautiful life if you can make it happen. I wanted to ask you, what biomarkers are your biggest? Because you're saying you look at like 20 of them, but you've got to have a top few that really trigger things for you.
Cardiovascular disease specific?
Cardiovascular specific.
So ApoB, apolipoprotein B, it's a protein found on top of every cholesterol particle that is contributing to heart disease. So LDL, VLDL, we can measure those, but there's IDL, which we can't measure. There's Lp(a), which not a lot of people measure. And ApoB also gives you a particle number in a way. It's a 1-to-1. Every particle has one ApoB. So the higher your ApoB, the higher cholesterol burden your body is dealing with. It's also important because there's discordance with LDL. So we always follow LDL in the past, but there's evidence where ApoB can go down, get better, but LDL go up, and it looks like it's getting worse. But multiple studies show that risk follows your ApoB level. And so I think everyone should have ApoB, and that should be the thing that they track every yearly or every 6 months to see where we are. And there's different cutoffs, and it depends on your level of risk in terms of how low you want that to go. But I think that's important. I think Lp(a) is very important. One time, it's a genetic risk factor that you can measure in your blood. It pops up when you were born, and it stays with you your entire life, no matter how healthy or unhealthy you are. And it's a risk enhancer. It increases the risk of having heart attacks and strokes, even if you're doing pretty well on all your other blood markers. So,
yeah, Lp(a), when I see plaque bilaterally on young people, that's the one that's usually up, or at least the one I notice. It's
a surprising calcium score. That's what I think about.
Oh, yeah.
And then if you've ever read an article about some CEO or celebrity that had a heart attack and they're in their 40s, it's Lp(a). There's no other reason, barring a few things, that you should have a heart attack in your 40s unless you've had significant disease burden for most of your life.
Yeah,
and Lp(a), unfortunately, doing that, it's creating damage when you're a teenager, when you're in your 20s, these times where you're not really supposed to be developing a lot of plaque. So it's happening earlier. So that's a big one. CRP, high sensitivity CRP, is a helpful one. So CRP is a marker of inflammation in the body. There are cells in your body that produce this protein, CRP, in the setting of inflammation. It doesn't tell you where the inflammation is coming from. It just tells you that there's inflammation present. And regular CRP, the cutoff is 3. And if you're less than 3, then you're okay. High sensitivity CRP is zeroing in on that less than 3 people. And so from a cardiovascular perspective, you want to be less than 1. And there's good data that shows if you're above 1 on a CRP, that there's increased, usually 2 to 3 times increased risk of heart disease just by having an elevated CRP level.
Fascinating. All right.
Let's see here. I'll give you 2 more. Insulin levels, I think, are helpful. So a fasting insulin that is elevated would suggest insulin resistance. So the body is struggling to manage blood sugar efficiently. Glucose, blood sugar, is the energy currency of our bodies. It's the most readily used and available. But when too high, it is damaging. It's an inflammatory molecule. It damages our arteries. And so you want to keep that in check. And when insulin is elevated, it, one, suggests that your ability to regulate blood sugar is hampered in some way. So you're having increased damage from glucose. 2, insulin levels itself are increased fat storage. So we have increased risk of having fatty liver disease or fat that's deposited into the liver just because our insulin levels are elevated. And that all of these things are playing into each other. The body is not a sum of parts. These things are all intricately connected. So what I'm talking about may lead to increased risk of having diabetes in the future, but it also increases risk of heart disease. It increases risk of dementias, increases risk of pain and frailty and bone loss and muscle loss. So these are all important aspects of our health. So we're talking about heart disease, but really this is a whole health. It's a whole health labs.
Let's describe the metabolic disease, which is too much sugar, too much insulin. So when we look at America, a picture of America from the 1970s at the beach and America now at the beach, there's a bit of a difference. I think those two big factors are corn syrup, it's been put into everything, and seed oils. In the 1990s, McDonald's switched out tallow, a beef oil, with cottonseed oil, which was an engine lubricant in World War II, like literally poured in the engines. It's high test stuff. And in the 90s, America decided to deep fry in it. And since then, we've all pretty steadily been gaining some weight. So too much sugar, too much insulin. I'm getting back to that. You drink it, and even if you think you're drinking sugar-free, that sweetness still spikes your blood sugar. Is that true? Have you read that too?
I don't know about spiking blood sugar. I've read that it increases your hunger-seeking or food-seeking behavior. So
That's it.
You eat more calories in a day drinking a zero sugar beverage that has like aspartame or something else in it.
Yeah. So that still triggers things in your body to make you want to eat more. And when you have too much sugar floating around your blood, and again, it's only like a teaspoon, and you got a little bit extra insulin floating around your blood, that's signaling for your body to store fat. Like those levels are just a bit elevated with all the sugar we're eating or the aspartame we're eating. And we're gonna start putting on weight because we're telling our body with the food we're eating, the signals we're giving it, to start storing and saving and hoarding. And it's just not as easy to get off either.
Yeah. I think of it this way. If you think of human existence, however long humans have been on this earth, up until very recently, we've had to survive in scarcity. Food is difficult to come by, and if you came by you killed an animal or you found a fruit tree or a beehive, you were going to eat the entire thing, and you're going to stuff yourself because you didn't know when the next meal was going to come.
Yeah,
it may come tomorrow, it may come weeks from now. And so your body has these elegant mechanisms in place that are very good at storage of energy that you can sip on until the next meal comes. And in between those meals, obviously, you're having to chase things down and you're doing these things that are also just expending energy in and of itself. There's also excessive periods of downtime for many of these ancient tribal cultures. So there's less stress. There's acute stress. Warring tribe comes by, you haven't had that meal and it's been day 7. So there are stressors, of course, don't get me wrong. Illnesses, people died still in their 20s and 30s. But there's also periods of boredom and periods of time where you didn't do much. And that's also a helpful thing.
and strong community.
Strong community. Yeah, that's a great point. Where everyone was relying on each other to make the community work better. No one person could do it all. No one person had an Amazon account where they could just buy everything and it comes to their house.
True.
But now the problem is that we don't live in scarcity anymore. We can get whatever we want at any given time, but our bodies are still living like that. We still have those pathways. And so our body doesn't know that the next meal is coming in 3 hours. So you eat something and it's going to store what it can store just in case. And so what happens is if you have this increased storage and you don't have really good mechanisms in our body to burn this energy that you've stored up. If you think back to ancestral times, losing weight probably meant you were dying. I've gone too long without food. You got some illness and you were wasting away. And so your body doesn't want that to happen. So it's very protective at surviving. And so that's why weight loss is just tough. There's lots of things fighting against us. And then our bodies are not just made for that. And so
we used to fast more, a lot more.
We used to fast more. Our food used to not contain 2,000 calories on one plate. We used to not work at all hours of the day, on the weekends too. We used to sleep pretty well because we didn't have TV to deal with.
Yeah.
all these things. We'd have this phone that your phone is like the window to the world sitting right next to your head, right in the bedroom. Like,
We can't even see the EMF signals. The last conference I was at, there was 400 booths. About 4 or 5 of them were too much EMF, how to manage that. And then there was another 4 or 5 booths were like, how to use it with precision to boost your mitochondria, something.
Yeah.
I don't know anymore, man. That's too crazy stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an EMF expert by any means. I can make the assumption that having a phone next to your bed is probably not great for many reasons. EMF may be included in that, and just having it separate is a good thing.
Right. The blue light adding up is not that healthy for us either. The kids not getting socialized, being entertained endlessly we're all guilty of that because it's fascinating. Yeah, you got to resist this world a little bit. I mean, everybody wants to give you faster, stronger, now, sweeter, more caloric, salty.
I don't want to be negative. Like, this is the reality that we're in. But the flip side is that we have these incredibly wonderful, amazing bodies that can do incredible things, that can heal, that can get better, that can, my colleague, Dr. Vickery, talks about if you can put on a virtual reality set that will show you what your life is like at its most optimal state. You're never going to want to take the thing off. You're going to want that for yourself. And it's, again, coming back to this idea that we shortchange ourselves. We don't think that our bodies are capable of doing something better than where we currently are because we never experienced it before. And so there's all this negative of all these things that are happening to us that are problematic. But on the flip side, we have incredible potential to grow and to be better.
Right? The body's ability to heal. I mean, just placebo, the fact that placebo is factored into research studies, that 20% of the time, these people are going to heal themselves because they thought they could. Wow.
It's the most annoying factor in a research study, according to the researcher. I think it's the most incredible factor. The fact that someone could take a sugar pill and their blood sugar drops or their A1C drops, like, that's fascinating.
Yeah. Strong magic right there.
Yeah. The belief that things can happen is powerful. And I see that in my practice all the time. And I try to do that when I'm seeing them is to show them, like, this can happen. It may not be the thing you're taking. It may just be the belief that it worked. I don't know. It doesn't matter to me. As long as you're getting better, that's all I care about. That's all you care about. And maybe it took you buying a $20 supplement to get there.
That's all it could take. But you got to believe it. You got to earn it. And you got to act like it's going to work.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's something magical there too. There's magic in fermentation. There's magic in fungus. And there's magic in belief.
Yep. It's good.
So where do you see medicine going in the next few years with all the drama happening?
Political drama?
There's drama.
General.
General.
I do think that we're going to see more and more people realize that the current medical system isn't giving them health. It's not to say the current medical system is inherently bad. It does a lot of good. ERs are incredibly good at saving people's lives. Being able to do these intricate, detailed surgeries that no other country in the world can do. These are all great things. But at least in my world, the primary care world, that we help people where we can, but we're not doing a great job at it. When I was in medical school or residency, a big aspect of primary care was chronic care management, managing chronic illnesses. The solution is not to fix it, reverse it. It's to manage it. So it's a very different way of thinking about it. If I'm just managing your disease, I'm just placating. I'm giving you medications to make symptoms go away in hopes that maybe you live long enough to enjoy X, Y, or Z. But I'm not trying to reverse disease at all. And so I think there's a paradigm shift where people are going to be wanting that. I don't want to take another medication because my diabetes is progressively worsening. I want to figure out how do I get off medications? How do I make my diabetes go away completely? I don't want to have a heart attack and then take medications to try to lessen my risk of my second one. I don't want a second one.
Yeah.
Maybe it takes medications to get there, but I want to do as much as I can that reduces my risk of having a second one down to zero, if possible. Those are different ways of thinking about health. And I think that's where we're going in medicine.
Yeah.
I think there's a growing respect of alternative therapies. There's lots of things that Western medicine can't answer. Why do I feel bloated all the time? Why do I have reflux? The current medical model is, I don't know, but here's an antacid for you. Maybe it's tomatoes, right? But
Like the Ozempic is a thing. It blows my mind that we're going to give you something where we don't want you to change your lifestyle at all. Keep eating that garbage. But we're just going to give you something so you don't digest the food quite right.
And there are people that use it that way. We use Ozempic and Wegovy and the generics all the time, but it's done in the setting of, you're coming to me because you need to lose 100 pounds. That's a hard task. And because of everything going on, maybe because of how your body's working, you're going to need some help. But that's not your only tool. You're going to use 1,000 other things too to try to make sure that when you reach your goal, whatever that is, you are healthier in every single way possible. You have not lost 30% of lean mass, which is what it shows in these studies, that you're just as strong as you are now as you were 100 pounds ago. Your body, blood work wise, looks perfect. So it's using tools in the right way, I think, is also important. And I think people are going to be demanding that too. People are already a little gun shy on these medications, or growing. There's a growing shyness around them because they're not sure, like, what are the long-term implications with it. But I think if handled appropriately, if you're not buying your Ozempic from the guy on the corner, and just giving it to you from a box under his coat, that which happens, I'm sure. Like, I mean, you can buy it. You can go online right now, and there's 15 places you can purchase it for next to nothing, without any guidance. I think people are recognizing that's probably not the way to go.
No, that is not the way to go.
And then I think the last thing I'll say is there's been a big push in AI. AI is kind of moving in a lot of different realms. I just don't see AI replacing a doctor-patient relationship. And I do think that is also growing, that idea that I can use AI to make my life easier in X, Y, or Z ways. But at the end of the day, I'd rather go see a doctor that may be wrong, or that may deliver the news to me in a messier way. But I have a lot more trust in that person than I do in this computer that's could be right 100% of the time. But health is a lot more than just information. There's a lot of emotion around it. There's a lot of empathy around it.
Yeah,
there's just
AI is
that.
It's a powerful tool. It's going to replace writing books. It's going to replace a lot, but it will not replace. This is what I have to believe: humans helping humans.
Mm-hmm.
I relate with other people. I'm going to ask for a physician to get judgment on what have you seen. You've got a lot of experience. I think we're all going to consult with the AI, but at some point, you're going to need to go to somebody to help you fix your problems. AI has the potential to do a lot, control a lot. But you're right. Humans helping humans is not going to go away.
Yeah.
Thanks for the talk today, Troy. I really appreciate it. You got a great practice. You care for your patients. You are always sending me great research articles on Natto, Kinase, really great forward-thinking things, and I very much appreciate it.
Yeah, Joe, I appreciate you and your company and allowing us to look inside people's arteries, and it's been a game changer in our practice. And people really enjoy the reports and just seeing a finer detail of what's going on inside of their bodies. Like you had with your previous guest, with Dr. Crohn, it's knowing your arterial age, is knowing what are your blood vessels in your heart looks like right now is a huge step forward when it comes to preventing heart disease and heart attacks and strokes in the future. So I appreciate you and your company.
Thank you, Doc. Appreciate it. Awesome. All right. Have a good day, and we'll talk to you later.
Take care. Bye-bye.